Today in the Old Wolf Workshop.
Mortises!
Hi, I'm Derek Olson, the Old Wolf Workshop Studio. Now welcome to How Would I Do It Friday, Mortise and tenon joints. Today, we're not doing the tenon side. I've already finished cutting those. We're going to worry about the mortise side of the mortise and tenon joints. So come along and see how I do them, Old Wolf Workshop style. When I make my mortise and tenons, I do mine just a little bit unorthodox from how I understand most other woodworkers do them. I actually typically will cut my tenons first and then measure my mortises off my cut tenons. I've actually asked around a little bit, and usually the response I get from people is that they cut their mortises first, or they use a floating tenon or some type of, let's call it cheating, like a domino, to make their floating tenons and their mortises. Not really cheating, but not as much fun as the way I like doing them anyway, in my opinion. How exactly I go about making them kind of depends on how I'm feeling that day. Sometimes I'll chop them out with a chisel, and sometimes I'll drill them. So today in the shop I'm going to actually show you both the ways that I do them. So I'm cheating a little bit and adding two techniques to one video. So when you're going to make your mortise and tenon joints, you have a couple design decisions to make. Because basically, if I think about it, there's three ways that you can have your mortise and tenons look. First of all, you can have a blind mortise and tenon, where the joint itself just looks like a butt joint with two boards butted up together, but hidden inside is this mortise and this tenon. The tenon isn't long enough to reach all the way through the joining board, so the mortise is blind. You only can see it when it's disassembled. And once it's together, you're fine. The other thing you can do is you can do excuse me. You can do a through mortise and tenon. Now here I've taken and made this when I built my put my stretcher in my saw bench here. I made a through mortise and tenon in the stretcher. Cut a through mortise, fit the tenon all the way through, and then I put a wedge in the end of the tenon that helps spread and open it up and make it a little bit more secure fit in there. The third choice that you have is to make a tusk tenon, which is where you pass your tenon longer than your mortise. You make a through mortise with a longer tenon. Through that longer tenon, you would then pass another hole in that tenon. You would pass a wedge. That wedge would help hold the tenon and the piece tight together. That way, if you wanted to, technically you could knock out that wedge and disassemble that joint, and that would make it easy to break down that furniture for moving reasons or something like that. When it comes to laying out my mortises, like I said earlier, I cut my tenons first usually, and I use that to start it out. I will actually then lay out and figure out where I want my mortise to go. In this plane first. And I'll just make a couple quick little reference marks here on the side. Then I'll take, and after I have these front two marks that show me the width of my tenon, I start with a marking knife and I just make a little bit of mark, and I wrap that mark around to the side that I'm going to cut the tenon out of. This gives me my top and my bottom margins for where my tenon's going to go. Now, coming back to the point that I've marked both the faces of these boards, so I'm keeping track of which face I want meeting which, I actually take, and this is the depth of cut that I want to remark here. I actually take, and then you see how I have the X here, I reference it with the X here. I have my face lined up here. This gives me the rough layout, where the outside edge of that mortise is going to be on that side. I'll repeat that for the other side and have the whole mortise marked out. Well, I have the whole mortise then marked out. I have my waist darkened. when I'm ready to actually start chopping this mortise, then I like to clamp it into a wood clamp like this. I think that's pretty common because the wood clamps on the sides help support me from blowing out the sides. The one thing I do have to be careful of in this soft pine is, as I'm levering out my chips, is blowing out the end grain out here. I actually just had to recut this joint after I started it once. I had to cut it off, and then I'm going to give it another start again here because that's something that I kind of forgotten. I was working with pine here, and I'd gone ahead and made that mistake already just tonight. So when I start chopping out my mortises, I like to start with a smaller, just a bench chisel here, and I take out my top layer here. Then I start working my way down with my heavier mortising chisel. The other thing I've done in preparation is I've gone ahead and taken a little bit of painter's blue tape, and I've marked the depth on my mortising chisel at how deep I want this blind mortise to be. So I don't go too far beyond that, just because it's fun chopping out a chisel, or banging on a chisel, chopping out a mortise. Even though I don't kill myself worrying about getting a tight mortise, more often than not when I'm chopping them with the chisels, I get very good results at getting that tight mortise. Here's my tenon driven into my mortise. I've driven it in. Oh, I could probably force it just a little bit more by hand if I wanted to, but I might as well just go ahead and take and... Now if I was... If I was tapping that through at home, or if I was tapping this through for finish, I mean, I would have had just a little bit of glue in there. I might have actually gone ahead and relieved it just a little bit more. This was a very, very snug fit, but not unhappy with the result I got. Again, if I have more to do, or maybe I'm just in the mood to, not in the mood to chop today, but I'm more in the mood to drill, I guess I can be kind of fickle like that. I will still clamp my workpiece into one of these wooden vices, and on these kind of things I like to do them sitting down. I gotta just take a seat on my bench here, go ahead and rest myself on top of my workpiece, holding it in place. I have my brace bit set up with a 1/4 inch gimlet style bit, and I'm just going to start working my way through the waist here. So now I've gone ahead and run the drill all the way through, drilled holes along the side, but of course it's still full of chips and stuff from the drill. I go through with a 1/4 inch bench chisel to clear out most of the chips. Sometimes I will use my mortising chisel just to get a little bit of extra heft and pull more chips out. And then I'll clean up the sides of the mortise with my paring chisel. So when I drill out a mortise like that, oftentimes one of the other things I'll do is I'll take a chisel and I'll use that chisel to round over the edges of the tenon a little bit, so I don't have to worry about squaring them so much. The rounded edges here will fit the rounded edges left behind by the drill. The other thing I will do from time to time is if I have a whole bunch of mortises to do, or the mortises are extra deep, or I'm having issues, I want to be extra precise for some reason, I will go ahead and use my drill press to drill out just like I did with the brace. Just repeated drill marks over and over and over, overlapping and filling up the area. Other than that, one of the things I do like to do in addition is very typically I will drawbore pin my mortise and tenon joints. It locks them together, it makes it super strong. It's definitely a joinery method that's been proven to help furniture and what it's been used to build last for ages and ages and ages. Beyond the life of any strength that glue could add, that mechanical lock of a drawbore pin will definitely work. Perhaps in the future, I'll do a little added bonus video here and show you guys how I drawbore pin a mortise and tenon joint as well. Until that time, I want to thank you for coming and watching How Would I Do It Friday. Again, I'm Derek Olson. This has been the Old Wolf Workshop Studio saying, how would you do it on Friday?